Hi, my name is Caroline, and today you're going to know me as Cleo, your muse of history, as together we uncover the truths around myth, legend, and folklore. What does the fox say? I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. What would you do if you were wandering the forest and you came across a cute little fox, and then you realized it has not one or two, but 9 tails, and then it turned into a woman? Today we're talking about the Nine Tails, so let's discover the stories surrounding these mystical beings. The Nine Tails can be found all across Eastern Asia, and it goes by 3 main names. In China, it is known as the Hulijing, in Korea, the Gumiho, and in Japan, the Kitsune. The Kitsune perhaps being the most well-known internationally due to the popularity of anime. Some say that the Gumiho and the Hulijing are basically the same creature, just from different countries, while the Kitsune is a different creature altogether. But we are going to cover all of this in great detail. These all look mostly the same across the 3 countries, but I'm still going to show you all the different versions because that's what we do here. So the Hulijing is said to be a sleek and silvery fox with a long, slender body and howls that sound like a newborn baby's cry, which I know sounds weird, but a fox scream is nothing like what you'd expect. Case in point, the Hulijing has been featured in media like Eternal Love of Dream, Legend of the Nine-Tails Fox, White Snake and its sequel Green Snake, and Love, Death, and Robots. Thomas Waters was a British consular who in 1866 was stationed in a Chinese province, which piqued his interest in the culture. Now, he was there due to colonization, and there are people who deep dive into those topics, and I highly recommend looking into that because it is very important information to educate yourself on. But here we talk about the folklore, and it doesn't really pertain to this. So later in 1870, Thomas returned to Taiwan and wrote one of the first English papers on Chinese mythology. In it, he discussed how he perceived yin and yang to be intertwined with the Hulijing. In it, Thomas asserts that following the Chinese beliefs, the abnormally long life of the Hulijing follows the yin's feminine aspect. The fox could live 800 to 1,000 years because of its cleverness, and in some cases even achieve immortality or godhood. Because of this, temples and shrines were built to the fox, and they still exist across China. Thomas goes on to stipulate that yang, the masculine side as he put it, is because of the fox's nocturnal lifestyle, which grants it the ability to don the guise of a woman. I mean, I am a night owl and I'm recording this at like midnight. Thomas says that like all things, the Hulijing requires balance, which is why they look together the yang, the masculine element, and thus the Hulijing must prey on the life force of men in order to gain their immortal or long lives. One of the stories I found most intriguing was that of Daji. Her story became popular because of historical romances of apotheosis written by Feng Xin Yanyi. He described her as a typical silvery fox that achieved her human form after 1,000 years of keeping her nose to the grindstone. Now, there's a lot of politics at play in the story, and Nuwa, a celestial sovereign, was displeased with the Emperor of Shang. So Nuwa made a deal with Daji. If Daji could destabilize the empire and get the people to overthrow the emperor, then Daji would be granted immortality. It was a really sweet deal for her. Now, some say there are historical records to back up that Daji was a real person, and she was the daughter of a noble family, and her real name was Su in 1047 BC. This version of accounts say that she was taken by the tyrannous emperor as a trophy. Whether her name was Su or Daji, the emperor was in his 60s by the time she came to be with him, and the kingdom was prosperous. So Daji had her work cut out. Now, the emperor was obsessed with Daji. He was enamored. and she was giving him the cold shoulder. He was trying everything to gain her affection. He would gift her elaborate menageries, throw lavish parties with pools of wine. I mean, like, can you imagine a pool filled with wine? How expensive would that be? That's like Babylonian right there. None of it worked. This woman was not being wooed. Eventually, Daji was a nightmare unto herself. It was said she enjoyed nothing more than the cries of suffering. Once a farmer walked barefoot across ice in front of her, and it caused him pain because, you know, he's human and not a magical being. And she had his feet cut off so that she could examine them and find out why that happened. Now, if little forms of torture like that weren't bad enough, Daji became known for her invention of a torture device known as a paulo. This lovely device is a bronze cylinder that is filled with coals so that the entire thing heats up, and the victim is then tied to it, like face first, and basically burned until they die. It's an excruciating death, and she absolutely reveled in it. She was a horrible being, and that is the nicest word I can bring myself to say. Yeah. All I got in me. Now, there was a tribe angry with the emperor, and their hatred was extremely deep-rooted, and they arrived in the capital to air out their grievances, and through a series of events, Daji and the tribal leader's son ended up having an affair. Now, the emperor finds out, wasn't happy for some reason, and killed him. Now, the leader of the tribe, he came looking for his son, and the emperor just, you know, out of the kindness of his heart, sat him down, gave him dinner to, you know, sit down, have a talk about the situation. And so they sat down to eat some soup for dinner, and afterward, you know, they ate their meal, and the emperor was like, yo, psych, you just ate your son. Literally. If that wasn't bad enough, he then took the tribal leader, who had really done nothing wrong, and locked him away in prison for 12 years. 12 years of this man's life after finding out his son had just been murdered and fed to him. The poor man. Over the next 12 years, his tribe and his surviving son would try time and again to free him, and it wasn't until 12 years later that they succeeded. By the time this came to pass, the people of Shang were extremely angry with Daji and the emperor for their cruelty. When the people turned on him, even his own soldiers did not protect him. They turned their swords on him. The emperor saw the end was there, and so he set himself on fire to end it all. I don't know what it is, but I think like maybe setting yourself on fire is like the cowards in power way of escaping responsibility. Now, you might be wondering about that immortality deal. Well, I got you covered. Nuwa did not grant Daji her immortality. She was sentenced to death because of her glee in the horrendous acts she committed and the anger people felt. Nuwa felt she had no other course of action. Now, some scholars say that most of these atrocities were not true, and they were made up by the tribe to rally people to their cause, which, if true, would make it one of the earliest documented cases of psychological warfare. While it's a highly disturbing story, like I said at the beginning, it is also a highly intriguing one, mostly due to the parts that could be true and the fact that we can date so far back into human history just how twisted humans have always been, be it in political matters or that of torture. I think too many people try to say it's a modern thing, but it's always been there. Gumihos appear in a decent amount of media. The Wicked Box series by Kat Cho. My roommate is a Gumiho based off the webtoon by the same name. My girlfriend is a Gumiho, unrelated to the past one. The Tale of the Nine-Tailed, Tale of the Fox's Child, and and many, many more K-drama. The Gumiho's appearance is not focused on nearly as much as its Chinese and Japanese counterpart. It's a fox creature that can grow more and more powerful over its lifespan. However, the emphasis put on the Gumiho's desire to reach its 1,000th year of life and gain its 9th tail, and the chance for it to either become or shapeshift into a human. In some tales, this comes with a stipulation that they must first consume a human organ in order to become one. A huge distinction between the Gumiho and its counterparts is it's always described as a malevolent and evil creature. Its desire is harm and destruction. In situations where they become human, they enjoy seducing and deceiving young men, I guess for funsies. There are multiple stories about this version of the Gumiho, the most popular being the fox girl, which sometimes is also named the fox sister. In this story, a couple had 3 sons and they desperately wanted a daughter. The husband prayed for one and said he would even settle for a fox. The wife found herself pregnant, and lo and behold, it was a girl. Years later, the livestock began to die in the night. The father had his eldest son sit and watch, and the next morning he came back horrified. He said he saw his sister shove her arm into the belly of a cow and steal its liver. She then ate it, and the cow died without a sound. The father didn't believe him, accused him of having a nightmare, and then banished him. Now, rinse and repeat this story 2 more times. Both of the other sons are banished, and all 3 of them end up at a Buddhist monastery. They're given counsel and potions to defeat their fox demon sister and return home a year later. They find their town deserted and their home in shambles. Their parents are missing and their sister is home alone. She offers them food, and so they eat and they sleep. And they wake in the middle of the night to find she's killed one of their brothers and is eating his liver. And they find that the meal they had eaten was all an illusion and was the butchered bodies of their parents and even some of the townfolk. A chase ensues and they end up killing her with the potion from the monk. Now, there are folktales of Gumiho who will kiss their victims and transfer what is called a bead into their victim's mouth. This will transfer his life force over to the Gumiho. I'm unsure why they can't just spit it out, but apparently it's stuck. I mean, it's magic. I don't know why I'm questioning it. However, the loophole is if they swallow the bead, they may even survive and gain magical powers and great knowledge. There was a film in 1969 called 1,000-Year-Old Fox, which covered this particular part of the myth. But in the movie, they went a little further. The boy in the movie who had the bead in his mouth was told that if he swallowed the bead and looked up, he would gain the wisdom of the heavens. But if he swallowed the bead and looked down, he would gain the wisdom of the earth. It was almost like the original folktale had this unfinished thought, and the movie came in and was like, I got you. It can be hard to expand on folklore sometimes and do it well, and it's such good writing the way they did it, and it's so satisfying. All in all, the Gumiho is a captivating creature, and like many folktales, it's a warning, perhaps an outdated one, that women are dangerous seductresses and a daughter can't be taken at her word, etc. But these stories are being turned on their head in many of the stories I mentioned at the beginning. Many modern day writers see a different side to the Gumiho and are turning it into a multifaceted character, though some still take the cunning, dangerous creature at face value, and I think that's a lot of fun too. Like I said at the beginning, the kitsune is probably the most well-known version of the Nine Tails because of the international prevalence of Japanese media. But especially in Western countries, it is the one that's known the best. However, if you ask most anime fans here in the West about a kitsune, they'd probably only be able to tell you something they learned in passing from Naruto, Pokemon, or Demon Slayer. Which isn't a bad thing. I love that these shows give people exposure to folklore. But despite knowing the name, not many people tend to dig deeper. So let's do just that. The kitsune are believed to be messengers of the goddess Inari, who in Shinto and Buddhist religions is believed to be the goddess of foxes, rice, tea, sake, agriculture, industry, general prosperity, and worldly success. Because of their direct connection to Inari, kitsune are worshipped as kami. Kami are seen as a god or a venerated spirit. The level of worship can vary, but shrines are built to the kitsune for this reason. Though some kitsune are completely white, most tales say they look like a normal fox. You really couldn't tell them apart until they began aging. As they age and gain wisdom, they begin gaining their tails, every 100 years gaining a new one. It's kind of like an immortal version of collecting Girl Scout badges. So as the years go on and they gain wisdom and tails, they also gain powers. Unlike their counterparts who have to wait 1,000 years, the kitsune can shapeshift at the ripe old age of 100. It's like a toddler running around with the power to shapeshift. You're useless. You're not. I love you. But good grief, you did nothing there. They can take on any shape, but they usually prefer pretty women because, like, and they have the power to read minds, possess someone, and take control of somebody's dream. It was said very powerful kitsune, known as Celestial Fox, could even predict the future as well as shift time and space. The Celestial Fox is also known as the Master of Illusion and had the ability to create fire by rubbing its tails together like matchsticks. Can you imagine meeting something called the Celestial Fox that can do all that mind stuff, change time and space, predict your future, and then its tails catch on fire? I would like pass out and or throw up, maybe both. It's too much. Now, there are 13 elements to Japanese mythology: celestial, wind, spirit, darkness, fire, earth, river, ocean, forest, mountain, thunder, sound, and time. It was said each kitsune represented one of these elements and it would dictate its temperament. In some tales, a kitsune would be seen wearing a necklace with 12 beads, each bead representing one of the elements. The kitsune are unlike their counterparts in that most tales say they actually live rather harmoniously with humans. They dislike being discovered and will up and leave whatever life they've built if that happens. But kitsune aren't the type to cause harm for one of the kitsune tales is that of the Abe family. The Abe family had once been rich and powerful, but their landed status had been lost years before by Yasuna's father when he was tricked by a con man. While rebuilding his house, Yasuna would regularly travel to Inari's shrine in Shinoda Forest. One day, while walking the path to her shrine, a beautiful white fox jumped in his path. It was being chased by a hunter, and it asked Yasuna to save it. Yasuna knew white foxes were holy to Inari, and so he helped the creature escape. Shortly after, the hunter came, and he and Yasuna got into a fight. Yasuna was injured. After the hunter left, a young woman came out of the forest. She told him her name was Kuzunoha. She took him back to his home and nursed him back to health. The woman continued visiting Yasuna, caring for him and checking on his recovery. During her visits, Kuzunoha and Yasuna, they fell in love, and so when he was better, they got married. Eventually, Kuzunoha got pregnant and they had a son. The three of them lived happily for some time. However, when their son was 3 years old, he witnessed something strange. Some say it was when she looked in a mirror, others say it was while she was sleeping, but whenever it was, his mother's fox form appeared for a brief second. Her fox form having been discovered, Kuzunoha left her beloved family behind. She vanished, leaving a farewell note on the door. If you love me, come and visit in the forest of Shinoda Izumi, the resentful kudzu leaf. Now that was a pun if you didn't catch it. Kudzu, Kuzunoha, clever as a fox, that one. I probably just lost a few subscribers for that one. When he read her poem, Yasuna realized she was the fox he had saved years earlier. He and his son traveled to the forest of Shinoda where Kuzunoha had first entered the world of humankind. There, Kuzunoha appeared before them one last time. She presented them a crystal ball and a golden box as parting gifts, and then left her human family forever. Kuzunoha and Yasuna's son grew up to be a powerful sorcerer and astrologer thanks to the gifts his mother had left him and his powerful yokai heritage, and his father's training, which was passed down to him. He took the name Abe no Saime and became the most powerful omamiyoji in Japanese history. I feel like I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that foxes play a huge role in Native American legends. You'll find different stories depending on the tribes. In some Northern Californian tribes, the silver fox is seen as a creator god, while some tribes like Blackfoot and Apache have legends where the fox is associated with fire and the sun. According to some of their myths, it was Fox who stole fire and brought it to the people. Almost a mirror to the story of Prometheus, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me because the Native Americans who were telling these legends had absolutely no connection with the ancient Greeks writing those myths. Oh my gosh. I could go on for days about this. Days. But the way stories have been such a necessary part of humanity since the very beginning is such a fascinating thing. And like, genuinely from the bottom of my heart, thank you to any of you who are watching these videos of mine and enjoy them as I like babble on about this little passion of mine. It really does mean a lot to me how kind y'all have been. Stories are everything. They really are. They're in every part of our lives, and I'll never not be over the moon about that. But yeah, thank y'all for supporting it. It means a lot. A special thank you to Silver Crystal Rose for your request to cover the Nine Tails, and thank y'all for your patience as I had some technical difficulties this week and couldn't get my video up on time. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what myth, legend, or folklore you want me to cover next. I will see y'all next time. Bye-bye!